Warning, the audio in this video is all over the place. Viewer discretion is advised.
This dude is liking way too many of my girlfriend's pictures. Hello there world, my name is Keon, and today I'm going to show you the basics of blueprints. Not the basics of how to use it, but it's come to my attention that most of y'all might not know what the variables are. If you're asking yourself what a blueprint variable is, this is for you. So, today we're going to go over the blueprint variables. What you need to do, really quickly, is open the Unreal Editor, start a new project. I chose first person template, really doesn't matter, just start something. Make sure it has a character though, so just do first person template to follow behind safely. If you don't choose it and you have questions later on, that might be it. Another reason I'm doing this video is because I tried looking and I couldn't find a video that pretty much summed up the variables that you will be needing throughout your blueprint life. So I figured, hey, what's the point of telling you everything? I'm supposed to be teaching you, and if you can't connect the dots, then this channel is useless. Once your first person project has been created, just go on ahead and go into the blueprint folder. In here we should see a couple of blueprints. First thing to point out is you see these little icons on the corner of them. That kind of lets you know what class each of these belongs to. So here we have a HUD class, we won't be using that. A game mode class, we'll be using this very frequently. A projectile class, which is actually, from the looks of it, not even the child of a projectile. If you look very closely to where it says parent class, I can't move the mouse to show you, and I actually just pointed at the screen, not sure why. You'll see that it is the child of an actor. Actor is pretty much the parent of everything in the Unreal Engine, but more on that later. Maybe not, I don't know. So let's go in here and double click our first person character. We won't be adding anything per se. Don't look at all this stuff, ignore it. Don't even freak out. We're just going to clear all this out. So what you want to do is go over to where it says variables. Variables, as the name suggests, are things that can be anything and quite often do change over time, much like my weight. That was a cheesy joke. I'll be doing a lot less of those. First, if you click it by default, it'll be a Boolean. Boolean. Not sure how to pronounce that quite correctly, but hopefully you get the point. Booleans are yes or no variables. So often in coding, what's usually the naming process is, back in the old, well, when I first started looking at stuff like this, it would be B is blue. But now in Unreal, it's just easier to call it is blue. But you can still leave the B in there, and I think that in fact it actually leaves the B out. Leave the B out. Yeah. So is blue will be left out. So leaving the B in there really doesn't mean anything. Again, this is a true or false, yes or no, 1 or 0 kind of variable, and it's just very good thing to set really quickly if you need to check to see if something is doing something or not doing something. Very simple. The next kind of variable we're going to add is, in line, a byte. Ignore that. An integer. Now, an integer is a number, but let me explain on that a little bit more deeply as we add its cousin, a float. I'm going to go into the differences. Touch the microphone. Now I'm going to go into the differences between a float and an integer, because for some reason this used to confuse the crap out of me. An integer and numbers are floats. Now, if you're coming from a programming background, you're going to know about this already, so ignore it. Skip ahead. Doesn't apply to you. In fact, you're probably going to even know about long ints, short ints, all that weird crap that I never really got the grasp of. But an int is a number that's rounded to the next whole number. You can't see that. Here you go. So an int would just be 1 or 2 or 3,000. That's it. A float, however, could be 1 with decimal places. So you'll get something like this. Now, when will you need both of them, one or the other? Well, let's say you have children. Most people have 2.5 children if you average it out. But we're not going to average it out, because if you had 2.5 children, things would get awkward really fast. So you would have your number of children be an int. But when we went to go do the averaging process, it would be a float. Now, can you convert floats to int and ints to float? Yes, you can. And here's how. I've gone ahead and renamed the int and float value number of children and average number of children respectively. So one very important thing that you will be doing a lot is dragging stuff on here. Now by default, you could just click and drag and you'll get the option of either getting or setting. Getting just gets the value. This is very important because setting sets the value. So what's the difference really? Getting is the value of something, and setting is the integer when you want to change it. So let's say you want to change the number of children into the average number of children. You would go and get a set variable for number of children, and then get a get variable for average number of children. Now, another thing worth noting is that you don't need a whole new variable in order to change a variable. So let's say I wanted to add 1 to the number of children. So let's compile this real quick. Very important. You could use I forget what's the shortcut key, F7 to compile stuff, but I'm not really good with my F keys. So let's say we wanted to add 1 to the number of children. One of the beautiful things about Blueprint, and that you'll be realizing this plenty soon, is that it's very context sensitive. So we want to add, all you got to do is hit the plus sign, and there you go. You got an integer plus an integer. Now this new integer, again, very important, this new integer does not exist outside of this problem. However, if you would like it to exist, and this applies for any open point you see on any of these nodes, all you have to do is right click it and you can promote it to a variable. So the new variable is created and added right there for us. So all we have to do is just name it and compile and give it a value. So I'm going to see it has a default value of 1. I'm going to give it 5. So there we go. So that's how we change that to that. We could change variable by changing itself and then just saying, hey, I'm updated. That's it. Now let's say you want to make our integer a float or a float an integer. I'll just drag out get float, a set float for average number of children just to be safe. So here we have average number of children. Now color coding is a huge deal in Blueprint. This is cyan and this is kind of a lime green. When you throw this over here, you'll see that it'll convert this to a float. What this really means is that it'll convert it to a float. Plain and simple. However, when you go from float to integer, because of those decimal points, integers don't believe in those due to religious reasons, you have to cut them off. And the way we cut them off in Blueprint is that you'll see it done automatically for you, so you don't even have to memorize this. All you have to do is drag from here to here, and it'll convert it for you using the floor function. The floor function truncates the node, the number that you give into it, so it becomes an integer. Let me explain this a little bit more deeply. Truncate means that, let me just switch the video. You can't really see what I'm doing right now. Okay, so truncuate, or however you pronounce it, I don't know my words that well, means that you'll take a number, right, and you will round it, not even round it, you'll just chop it off. So instead of it being, if you could have a float and you convert it into an integer, instead of it being 5.676, that's almost demonic, it'll just be 5. Now, most of us who have passed second grade math will probably realize that rounding this method is kind of inaccurate for a lot of mathematical processes that we will go through. So let's say you have, that same number, 5.6, but you wanted to round up instead of rounding down. Very simple method to do this. All you have to do is add a 0.5 to it, the same way I just showed you. And when it truncates, it'll be truncating this reverse camera instead of this. I can't do this, but you get the picture. So you'll have a 5 instead of a 6 if it's at 5 or a half. The theory is that once you add 0.5, whatever's left, if it's less than, if the original float had a value, decimal value of less than 0.5, then the highest you could probably get is 0.9999 infinite, and that'll just round down to 0. You won't need a 1 in that case. However, if you have more than a 6, then it probably should be rounding up. Here's another thing about computers. They're dumb. We need to tell them to do everything. They are faster. Ooh, too close. They are faster than us. So it's very important to keep this in mind. You gotta tell the computer to do everything for you. Don't assume. I feel like this video is getting a little too long for your attention span, so let's go on ahead and just hurry up and go through the rest of these. So we got float. Next is a name. A name is, let's hold down Control-Alt, because I don't know what a name is. A name is a piece of text used to identify something within the game. Comparing two names is much faster than comparing two strings. So I guess this is what you want to do if you want to like give something a name. Again, I don't fully understand it. I haven't seen it used, but I'm just going to, since we're within the first controller character, I'm just going to say my character. I guess the good thing about this is, as it said, it's good for comparing. So we could drag off my name get and drag off, and for comparison operators, usually you'll hit the equal sign and you'll get something like this. So if your baloney and your character has two different names, then this will probably come out to false. But if it has the same name, it'll probably come out to true. Bolagna. So again, we will be using these later, but more for characters and objects. I've never really needed to use a name, but that's just me. Next variable. Text, string, pretty much do the same thing. Main difference is that string is just a piece of text, and text is usually used within the game somehow. A vector now is very, very crucial to learn. A vector is three floats in one variable. You're usually given an XYZ axis. So this is good for like 3D movement. Well, what we're going to do is call this just my vector, nothing special, but it's very cool because vectors have a lot of functions and features that go around them. So let's say you want to, you have a vector, right? Let's grab a get vector real quick, and then let's get a set vector. So we'll be changing and moving the same thing. So one cool thing about vectors is that when you drag off, by default, they'll if you have context sensitivity checked over here, you'll have a break vector node pop up, and from here you can do all kinds of chaos. And then the beautiful thing about this is easier to do it from here. A receiving vector node input, you'll have make vector. So technically you could just do stuff like this. Now naturally this is effing useless, don't ever do this. But what's interesting about this is, let's say you want something to be a little bit higher off the z-axis than it would have been before. So what you would do is that you would take that z-axis, add it to something, and then return the result of that into the make vector's z input. So now this is going to be 5 z units higher than this. Another thing worth noting, if you don't know by now, is in Unreal, a unit is 1 centimeter in real world space. Last but not least, well actually second to last but not least, is the rotator. Rotators I don't fully understand yet because they're weird. They have 360 degrees as you would expect. So one 360 degree rotation is a full rotation, but they can be really dangerous and get really scary really fast. So let's go out and just explore a little bit, since I don't really know too much myself. We're going to grab this and drag off of it. Now we can see, as we have with the vector, we have a break rotation. So pitch yaw, yada 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 yada. So again, this is something that's very useful to look up on online, because as far as I recall, whereas correlates XYZ here, it's not exactly the same with rotator. So experiment with that. I encourage you to share your results with me. I'll be doing the same, which is sad because I'm making a game with these things, but I still don't fully understand them. Last but not least is the what the F category. These can be, oh no, never mind, we'll explore these in another video. Everything down here, the structures, I'm not even going to scroll through all that. Structures, object references, interfaces, all these are very, very, very specific kinds of variables where they'll pretty much be things that already exist. So let's say my character, you can actually find my character in here. So let's type my character. Oh no, you can't find my oh, never mind, because it's not called my character. It's called first person character. So we can actually get a variable of our character within our character. Crazy, right? We'll worry about that later though. Don't ask questions. I won't answer them. But the last but not least is a transform. The transform is kind of like a struct, basically, where you have vectors, rotators, and a whole bunch of other things that come together that pretty much determine the position, the rotation, and overall place in the world of a object. So we're going to drag off here and break transform, and you see all that? This is a vector which can be broken further down into one of those. This is another vector, and this is a rotator. So it's very important to learn rotation before we learn transform. Now, the cool thing about this, however, is that we can convert vectors into transforms, because vectors only have the location or scale. We could actually bring this over here and it'll do the conversion for us. Be careful with this because the results might not always be what you need, but just worth noting that you can do that. Now, if it's possible to do with rotation, and yes, it is. But as you see, the more complex node comes up. Because it's missing vector input. So this would be kind of the equivalent with the rotation. So that's going to be all for this video. Went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but hey, it's a learning experience. Don't forget to subscribe, let your friends know, and tune in for the next one. Also, I will be starting a Patreon soon, since I can only get these out every so often. I got shit to do. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. I clicked the wrong button. That's not even bye.